Right.
And huge thank you to everyone who sent questions in for him. Thank you for Ryan for coming on so consistently, and thank you everyone for going over and clicking on Ryan's links
Yeah.
and getting stuff. Links in the description box.
Get a
Look
calendar. There you go.
I had
Oh, you've got it. Nice. Is that the one with the list on the back of it?
Yeah. I'm not gonna
nice.
I'll keep that away right now, but
yeah, it's on YouTube.
If you want to wear these things, guys, go to Ryan's merch shop, link in description.
I have a hoodie of that now.
Do you?
Yeah, it's winter time, so we thought let's make a hoodie. Client
Ryan,
list on the back, map on the front. Yep.
So much is happening. Like there's this acceleration towards nuclear war. You've got the Gaetz thing you want to talk about.
Syria, yeah. Syria. ISIS is back. Yep.
They're pushing wars everywhere before Trump gets in.
Yeah, Biden is making it as hard as possible for him to have any sort of peace anywhere.
Well, when you say Biden, do you mean the shadow government?
Yeah, I mean Anthony Blinken and Jill Biden. Yeah, all the people around him. He doesn't know where he is. He, U.S. and France brokered the peace deal with Hezbollah, and the country were not allowed to say on YouTube. And less than a day later, there's an upstart of Al-Nusra Front, now called HTS, pouring over the Turkish border and from Idlib into Manbij and Aleppo. And it's like 2013 again. Wow, let's re-kick off the Syrian war and you throw that into sectarian violence for another 9 years. It wasn't that grand last time. Unbelievable. I don't think it will last this time like it did last time, though.
What is the goal of pushing for all these wars before Trump gets in right now? This insane acceleration?
Well, the place we're not allowed to name was losing too many soldiers, so they went back to Plan B. And Plan B was using these sectarian Takfiri, Daesh, Salafist groups as a battering ram into Syria. You have to see, like, they view Syria as the physical conduit between Iran and Lebanon, or Iran and Hezbollah. And they weren't doing too well against Hezbollah. So they thought, okay, we'll re-kick off the Syrian war, give them a headache there. Russia's last base is in Latakia in Syria. Man, I thought John McCain was dead. So I'm allergic to him. Something getting me. But yeah, their last base on the Mediterranean is there. So they're giving Russia a lot of different problems. They reintroduced they introduced a new hypersonic missile. It was not an ICBM like Ukraine thought. It merged into glide bombs. Very interesting. I just got a long report on it from some intel people from Australia and haven't got to dig into it, but I took some phone calls about it. Very interesting weapon. Seems to be mass produced as well. And so, yeah, then they see this asymmetric response. Oh, okay, we can cause you problems in Syria. Russia is an ally of Syria. But Turkey's just being really stupid here. And then there was a pager attack. And we all know who did that exact same thing in Lebanon. And it's the one they did it again in Syria. So that place is actively helping Al-Qaeda again. And so are the Turks. And they're in Aleppo again. It's just so disgusting. The whole reason that any Al-Qaeda were left in the Afrin area was a negotiation that Turkey and Russia made with Syria. Now Assad has the pretext to go ahead and finish them off. And they have been bombing HTS supply routes and caravans all night. And they're going to have to root them out of Aleppo, which is going to take months. And then they're going to have to get rid of them out of Afrin Idlib, which could take all year. Who knows? It's just, there's so much violence and pointless death. And it's going to cause refugees again. And you can guarantee that Al-Nusra Front will target YPG. I believe they already did. and get the Kurdish factions involved. And it's going to make it almost impossible for Donald Trump to pull those 900 American soldiers out of Syria like he promised to do and tried to do last time, and they ignored him. And he and Vance and his cabinet are in agreement. Get them out of Syria. That's something Matt Gaetz tried to pass a bill to get U.S. troops out of Syria. It didn't work. But he's on the floor and he very elegantly lays out exactly what's happening and how the U.S. presence there is like flypaper for terrorists. It's recruiting. They can point to it and go, see him. Big bad America's there. But big bad America is protecting the Kurdish annexation of Syrian land and oil. That's all they're doing. And there's no point in it at all. They should bring them home.
So,
but yeah, all that happened just between the last time you and I talked a few days ago.
So Putin is being portrayed here as this mad dog. He's terminal with the big C. He's gonna, invade Poland. He's gonna do what Hitler did. It seems to me, Ryan, he's the only one showing restraint right now versus the mad dogs of America who are running the Biden administration.
Well, he could do a lot of things. He seems to be biding his time since he knows a new administration, a whole new cabinet's going to be coming in with adults like Tulsi Gabbard who they could actually speak with. They could actually have reopen communications. Right now, Russia and the U.S., who've always had communicated with each other, there's no one to talk to. And they think, well, why bother? You just lie to us. That Newland, Blinken, Sullivan faction had no interest in anything other than, killing to the last Ukrainian, using them as a profiteer wheel and a crash test dummy against Russia. And that's what it's been. And, the results for crash test dummies. They hit the wall and the wall wins. They've hit the meat grinder and the meat grinder is winning. And hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have died. And they're just going to lose the Donbass and more. They're going to lose all that territory no matter what. So what is the point to keep on fighting? For what? To kill some more Russians at the expense of even more Ukrainians and lose some more territory? You're not going to win that war with new ATACMS missiles or anything. And look at the new hypersonic Mach 10 dropping down like something out of the book of Revelations. Just boom, boom, boom. It comes in as fast as an ICBM, but it isn't. And then it merves out into glide bombs, so they hit a greater area. Instead of a ballistic missile that just does overkill on one spot, which you'd want if something's underground, you want to do all the way down, bunker buster. But when you have a lot of targets, you'd rather spread out the pain so that you just do enough to destroy each area, but you cover a greater area. So they the MERV clusters out in the glide bombs and then they hit. And from the satellite imagery and other data we have, we can tell that something in that wooded area had secondary explosions. They were blowing up for a long time. The strike took about 10 seconds and this was ongoing explosion. They said, no, they didn't destroy anything of significance, but then what's blowing up? And when have they ever told the truth? Yeah.
So you've got a question come in, but let me just answer one question. Hey, Biltong, we're going to get Misha back on, and I think Jen and Bev, we are hoping to interview Misha. And so I know we've gone over the basics of this many times, Ryan, but there's always new viewers. So the question is, Putin has invaded a European country. Isn't that an act of war?
Well, Ukraine invaded the Donbass first in a civil war, which declared independence. And they tried to join the Russian Federation. And then after he intervened, but look, you got to take the context of what happened in Georgia with South Ossetia, the two Chechen wars, and then Ukraine's civil war. Crimea seceded and rejoined Russia after the coup d'etat. The Donbass has had conflict and hot war there since 2014. And they had the Minsk II Accords from Belarus, which Zelensky broke. Ukraine decided to take heavy artillery and fire it into the Donbass in February of 2022. And that started a war. Then Russia intervened. They have ethnic Russians that live there, speak Russian from Russia. Territory was Russian up until the 1950s. And they don't want NATO trained and armed troops next to Moscow. They want a buffer zone. The US did the same thing in the Cuban Missile Crisis. They didn't want Russian weapons so close to Florida or other states. And that was a red line and a threat that was super clear. NATO knew exactly what would happen crossing that line, arming Ukraine and making them de facto NATO. They lied to Russia in 2014. Biden time, Merkel admitted that. They attacked them economically, kicked him off SWIFT, put sanctions on the country. Mercenaries flooded the country. Satellite information from the Brits, the French, and the Americans are relayed to Ukraine. They have the eye in the sky. They got Elon's Starlink. They have HIMARS and Javelins. They have Leopard tanks from Germany. They have the Storm Shadow from Britain. They also have now they have ATACMS from the United States and Neptune anti-ship missiles from the United States. This is a NATO war against Russia. And what are they supposed to do? Wait. And Ukraine has gone into Russia too in the Kursk region. So yeah, it's a war, or you can call it a special military operation. There's a little bit of legalese there on like how they will operate and how full scale they'll go. But I don't care. I think you're parsing words with semantics and things there, but they haven't fully even mobilized. The Russians haven't. They can handle this with an SMO. At the end of the day, despite all the money and all the gear, it's 150 million versus 25. And the writing was on the wall. And Russia is offensively technically superior. And they've had, frankly, they've just made better tactical decisions versus all of NATO. And Ukraine had some real crack troops, and they do well, though they don't have enough of those. And their conscripts are poorly trained. They're forced into it. A lot of refugees fled the country. There's nothing for them to fight for. They don't care if the Donbass leaves. Czechoslovakia broke into the Czech Republic and Slovakia non-violently. Nobody cared. We stayed out of it. Václav Havel and that whole thing. The Donbass wanted to separate. They clearly had a coup d'etat. There was a dividing difference between an EU deal and a Russian deal. The Russian deal was accepted, and then they said, okay, we don't accept your leadership. They're at war. They are. But it's not unprovoked. And it's not an act of aggression when the other side physically started the war by attacking Donbass.
Yeah, and the CP sent in a follow-up question. Let me just say something.
100% if someone invaded Canada, America would get involved. Right? They're not going to let them set up I don't know, the Chinese were in Ottawa. They're not going to do that.
Curious, the Ukrainians did have a say. They had a democratically elected government that was overthrown by the CIA to get to where we are today and to infringe upon the agreement they'd made, with Russia about NATO, and then they try and put NATO on Russia's border. So the CIA and the deep state and Boris Johnson went out there and told the Ukrainians, don't make peace, keep fighting. 600,000 people have died. My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine who have been manipulated. It's a blood sacrifice by the deep state and Boris Johnson. And that country has been divided up by billionaires and BlackRock. And they're all trying to protect their investment right now by keeping.
Did you hear Keir Starmer? Keir Starmer, I don't know whether is it a he? I don't know whether it was on purpose or not, but he said the quiet part out loud. He said, we're fighting a proxy war in Ukraine and we're not arming the proxies enough.
He's the sicko who a couple of months ago was begging for Biden to do the long-range missiles into Russia, and the Biden admin said no, yet they just, flipped on that when after Trump. So it's like these people, the foreign policy to them is dictated by the likes of Raytheon. They don't have sleepless nights over hundreds of thousands of people dead.
Yeah, the only reason they'll feint a no is to get a bigger paycheck from Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and the usual suspects. Because they sent those weapons there last April. They just didn't give the green light to use them yet. But why are they physically even there? The whole thing was, if Trump gets in, we're going to let loose on these and he can deal with the mess.
They are dragging kids to the front line right now, the meat grinder. And I had a neighbor who was out there, and he said, he was telling people going to the front line, you might as well just call your families, call your girlfriend, call your wife, whatever it is, because they ain't going to see you again.
They got about a 7-day lifespan out there on the front.
Oh my God. All for the benefit of Keir Starmer, BlackRock, Raytheon, the CIA, the deep state. It's absolutely sickening.
Keir Starmer couldn't break a pencil.
Yeah, why don't these guys go and fight on the front line? Wasn't Boris Johnson going? Wasn't Boris Johnson going to the meat grinder and fight if he feels this precious about it?
He fights with meat.
So now, Ryan,
old BJ,
in the last couple of days, they've said we need to preemptively give Ukraine nukes.
I heard that. I saw that from Kyle Anzalone on antiwar.com. That is something the Europeans discussed too. In the scenario of mutual destruction, guess who gets hit first?
London.
Who's closer?
London.
Yeah, London gets hit, and then the rest of Europe gets hit. You're insane. And these new missiles, these new hypersonics, can hit England. That is within range. How stupid! It doesn't have to be a nuke, and it can still be devastating. I mean, you're gonna ask for it, and you think America won't double cross you? Have you seen our foreign policy?
You're getting asked, Ryan, are you a fan of Putin?
Well, it's not that I'm a fan of Putin. I'm just anti-NATO. I mean, they destroyed Yugoslavia, they destroyed Libya, and their actions are destroying Ukraine. You know, I like to leave bears in the woods instead of throwing stones at them.
Exactly.
I would say, I mean, he, like anybody, he's done good, he's done bad. He did throw a lot of these corrupt oligarchs in prison or exiled them from the country, but then he favored his own little factions. So it's just, but that's that's politicians, man. But given that, or it's like, do you like Saddam Hussein because you don't want to go to war in Iraq? Like, no, I'm not a fan of Saddam. I just think the war in Iraq is stupid. They don't have WMDs. They're not a threat to the United States. Reason 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I don't care what you say about them.
Ryan,
or Gaddafi or these people. We didn't need to do that.
We don't want nuclear holocaust to wipe out our families and incinerate our kids, Ryan. So that makes us fans of Putin all of a sudden.
Right. Oh, you're doing Putin talking points because you don't want to lob nukes at each other. Hey, it's like, okay, Kim Jong-un, he's just a few miles away from me right now. Total ass clown. Total despot. Do I want to invade North Korea? No, I do not. Because millions of people would die on both sides. That doesn't make me his fan. It just makes me not retarded. Yeah, you have to think with the real world. Invading Russia is a bad idea.
Hitler tried it, Napoleon tried it, and it accelerated their own downfalls. So you got a question here.
The only one to pull it off was the Mongolians.
And that didn't last. You got a question here from Bill Tong. Hi, Ryan. So is this war about oil, gas, and other commodities? There are a lot of resources in Ukraine. And is it purely about money for Democrats creating a BS war and for bloodthirsty evil ones?
Oil and gas, but not the way you think. It's not to get oil and gas. It's to prevent Germany and Europe from getting cheap oil and gas from Russia. If you don't sever that relationship, Germany was just going to economically pull way ahead of everybody else in the EU by getting that cheap oil and gas from Russia. And Russia, it was a win-win. That's why they had the Nord Stream line. It circumvents Ukraine so they can't cut it off as it went through the sea. Germany spent billions of dollars to hook this up. And then somebody blew it up. It building 7'd itself or whatever. It got Epstein. America blew it up. Biden was saying, we'll take care of that. They didn't want that cheap oil and gas going to Europe. relied on that. The reason Europe can have a lot of the social programs that it does have is because it had cheap oil and gas from Russia. The reason Norway can pull that off is it also has its own that it's now selling, but that's not going to last now. You're having to buy it through third parties, and the price has gone up. Even with European states and America dipping into their oil reserves, that's temporary. You can float the price by dipping into your reserves, but your reserves have a limit and you're using up. That should be for real crisis mode. You don't need to have sanctions on Russia. You could buy the gas and oil from Russia and from Iran and from Venezuela, from any of these places. As you're just harming yourself. I would argue the sanctions on Russia have hurt Europe as much as it did Russia, if not more.
Yeah, the Germans.
And definitely Germany. They're just, that's a suicidal state. They got off nuclear power, and then they buy electricity from France, who makes it with nuclear power. You know, it's just every decision. They used to be the all of the world, the German engineer. Look at their train stations now. Horrible. It looks like something from 40 years ago or 60 years ago in Japan.
Question from Devil Doll. Does all NATO get involved when there's an attack on a NATO country?
There is this Article 4 and Article 5 that allows them to do that. But actually, if you really read it, so they have the right to attack if one of their members are attacked, but they don't necessarily have to come to the defense of one of their members who's been attacked.
I thought it was automatic. That's
yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's look, and even if you wrote that down, reality is as reality does. If I don't know, if Russia went into Romania or something, do you think all of NATO is gonna back them up? I don't.
Because I'm going to speculate here. There's some kind of facility in Poland that there is speculation that if more long-range missiles are shot from Ukraine into Russia, Putin is going to bomb this facility that's got something to do with those missiles and NATO in Poland.
I think he'll give it a shot with Donald Trump. And if that's a bunch of hot air, he's just going to, that's it. He's going to slam the gauntlet down and be like, let loose. And they will hit targets in Poland and Romania. And there's nothing NATO can do.
And do you think he will drop hypersonics on Kiev?
I don't know if he'll just start wiping out civilians a la country we're not allowed to name style. But he hit the power grid already, and he can keep doing that all day. You're going to have a real nice cold winter without electricity.
Well, like he could go for like, do they have a parliament in Kiev? Like where?
Well, yeah, but he'd probably hit, I mean, you could like this be funny, but it's just hitting command and control would be more, command and control centers would do more damage to them militarily. Parliament actually helps Russia with all the money they waste.
Huh. So right. How do you
just a building? They could just meet somewhere else, So, but taking out command and control centers, especially while they're there, that would mess them up.
Let's assume that Boris Johnson and the CIA and the deep state, like, come on, launch more long-range missiles. Let's see what happens next. What do you think will happen next? Because I think that is going to happen pretty soon. They're going to do it again.
I think the way they're effing about in Syria and Ukraine, and there's so many tripwires right now that could escalate this thing. And fortunately, it's the Russians with the cooler heads right now. But if you do another drone attack on Moscow, like happened in the past, or MEK, hits a concert hall or something, some horrible Christmas Day attack or something like that, and I'm also, with the poorest border in the United States and all these millions of people that have got in, and now they're picking a fight and aiding Al Qaeda with weapons and money, you're asking for another 9/11 style event. You're at false flag or not, you're asking for real terrorism. And it doesn't take a genius to think of ways to kill hundreds of people. I mean, anybody, I'm not going to say them, but all of us, like in our head, could think of like, well, you could just Yes. Well, they everything you can think of, you could just do this here. You could they just run a truck into a building. You could dump roof and nails on a bridge. You could do this. You could just machine gun a movie theater, whatever. They know all these things too. And they're in the United States. And they're in European countries. All they need is a signal. It's so stupid. He shouldn't, first of all, shouldn't have open borders. Secondly, he shouldn't be supporting genocide in the Middle East. That is going to have blowback because they don't have F-15s and they don't have gear. They see that they have real grievances, and you're asking for it. And people who just hate the United States or hate the United Kingdom, they will point to something legitimate like Palestine as an excuse or pretext for their cause, But really, they're just Salafists that want to act just like the Zionists and control and murder and rape and do all the same similar things, head chopping lunatics. And they will just randomly kill civilians because that's what you do. That's what you guys have been doing. You killed 100,000 Palestinians. They killed 3,000 civilians in Lebanon, mostly in Beirut, bombed apartments. So if you're going to act like that with your advanced weapons, why can't a terrorist act like that? Kapow, Paris, Kapow, Berlin, wherever, anywhere, everywhere. You're going to get a real war on terror. When it comes back again, if you're going to pump money back into Al-Qaeda in Syria, do you think it's going to stay there? It didn't before. Look at all the terrorist attacks that happened all over Europe while you were funding Al-Qaeda in Syria. I look at the blowback that hit the United States when you were funding Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. It doesn't stay localized. And you combine that with open borders and a president that's basically asleep at the wheel. This is really ripe for a huge one to go down. And I can sit here and think they could do this. I'm sure they've thought of the same things, and it would work because we do not have what we need to have in place. Trump can't get in fast enough. We need that Tom Holman. We need strict borders and start the deportations. And we need to change our policies in the Middle East and in Europe and stop financing psychopaths and supporting and denying genocide. And it's not our civilian public's fault that our government acts like that. But guess who's going to get the backlash? We are.
Right. And by the time Trump gets in, how many wars is the Biden admin going to have escalated or created? And does that completely spoil Trump's peace plan? Is it going to frustrate it?
Well, they attacked Yemen too. And then there's all the things is doing to all their neighbors. Not so much in Jordan, but 3 Americans died at a base in Jordan, south of El Tam too, because of shenanigans. American bases are just sitting ducks in Iraq and Syria right now. They could be hit. Iran still owes one to you-know-who, because you-know-who attacked them last, and it wasn't effective. And yet Iran proved they can hit them and hit them wherever they want and whenever they want. Then they're backing Al-Qaeda in Syria, which will inevitably, like I said, is going to have the Turks and the Kurds fighting YPG. PKK could start acting up again in Turkey. Then, obviously, ISIS, it's basically Al-Qaeda in Iraq and Syria. That's what it is now. It could spill back into Lebanon. That's their plan. Get the Arabs to kill each other. This is the stated plan from Oded Yanan. This is the stated plan in the Clean Break paper. This is the stated plan of Salafist principalities from CIA, from Hillary Clinton. Onward on. For 3 decades, this has been the plan. Get them to kill each other. Break them down by sectarian lines. Get Shia, Sunni, and Kurds to wipe each other out because it's good for the country we're not allowed to name, which is the agitator behind all these things, including the conflict with Russia. The whole thing was get the Russians out of Syria so that the place I'm not allowed to say can have its regional ambitions in that area. Can't do it when there's Russian protector. So they handcuffed them to Ukraine. But Ukraine cannot sustain, they're just flat out running out of personnel and they can't sustain it. So now the idea is what? Give them nukes? Are you serious? Trump could get in and cut a deal where Ukraine is going to lose territory, and we'll see whatever that in even a bad deal is better than continuing the war and then losing it anyway and having fewer men. But Trump's cabinet is ultra Zionist, so I'm not sure what they do about the wars in the South. He did float the Abrams Accords last time and tried to strong arm economically and not use violence, although there was plenty of theft, which is, I mean, you know what I mean? It wasn't just mowing the lawn and genocide Joe like it is now. So maybe things could improve relative to how they were, but they will still suck. I was really hoping Matt Gaetz would be the attorney general and just start going after the swamp creatures one by one, because he'd be the guy to do it. William & Mary Law School grad. It's my school. But he's the one. And he was good on all these things. He was against the jab mandate in the military. He was against all the things I'm not allowed to say on YouTube because they protect these pederasts. He was good on. And I really want to know, like from last time I pointed out, it was very clever what they did to them. They had somebody apparently hack the government, but only got the files and the depositions from the accusers and not the part where it was found that the accusers were full of crap. So all the accusations got leaked to the New York Times and the rest of the media and nothing else. And it was the same old, same old. If you go through, there was another lawsuit by this guy named Christopher Dorkworth, who he got accused of the same things as Matt Gaetz, human trafficking, sex with a minor, because let's
say transportation.
Transportation, yeah, he was stuck in traffic. That's what I was saying. He was sort of like one of these rainbow pill parties was at his house, but he wasn't there. This is another thing Joel Greenberg did, because I think we went over it before, but this guy was already guilty of transportation, as well as the other transportation. Well, that you would know anything about that. Stalking, wire fraud, bribery, identity theft, conspiracy to defraud the government, impersonating a cop twice. He created fake businesses and then got him loans, and then he got COVID bucks, and then he got disaster relief, and he lied about all of it. He spent $3.5 million on consultants who are all close friends of his. He used money to buy an extra office that he loaded with crypto mining machines, and he plugged too many in, and he caught the office on fire. He created fake IDs. He transported girlies, and he paid him on Venmo for like, here's $600 for ice cream. Just stupid stuff. He created a fake smear letter against a political opponent who the guy was a teacher, and he claimed to be a student who had been wrongly touched by him, and that Joel was it wasn't true, but it was Joel just pretending. He left his fingerprints on the envelope, so they found that out right away. He created fake Twitter and Facebook accounts to call that guy a white supremacist, because that's just their go-to. He spent $15,000 on remote controlled sprinkler systems so he could spray people walking by the office. Very mature. And that's actually kind of funny, but come on, man. And then he brought I don't know, I can't say the name of kusuri in Japanese. He brought things to parties that you're not supposed to have, and I'm not allowed to say, but the kind you swallow. Yeah, and then he got involved. So he's doing all this, and at one of these house parties with these illegal substances, he goes to this guy Christopher's home when he knows he isn't there, and it's a gated community. And so the way those work is you roll up and you have to say, "Oh, I'm so and so going to so and so's house," and the security guard will call in, or he already have your name on a list, knowing that you're approaching, and go, "Okay, go ahead," whatever. And so Matt Gaetz is not on this list, by the way, but Joel Greenberg was, and Joseph Ellicott was. Both of them got prison sentences for different things, by the way. They're at these parties, and they brought let's call her AB, that's her initials, who was 17, to this other guy's house where they're having this party, where they tried to say Matt Gaetz was there, and that basically everything Joel Greenberg actually did, transporting and banging a minor, that's what they accuse Matt Gaetz of doing, but it's really what Greenberg did. And I've just read this 600-page court document, and then I read all the references, probably 1,000 pages of stuff. And in it, Greenberg admits those guys didn't do anything. He's talking to his cellmate. All got recorded. The guy's such an idiot. But yeah, so there's some more things that I didn't know even from last time, because the guy, it's hard to keep track of all the stupid stuff he did. One of them was Mayor Benjamin Paris, who I think he got 60 days in jail and some amount of money fined or whatever. But one of the things that Greenberg did with him was they set up a ghost candidate. And so it was a real person, but she wasn't actually running. But he made all these ads and stuff that were slightly to the left of the Democrat so that they could siphon votes off in this Florida Senate race. And it was just a completely made up campaign. And then in addition to that, and he did this on his own, it wasn't Greenberg, but Benjamin donated money to the fake candidate on behalf of someone else illegally. So it's his money, but I didn't give it. Use someone else's name. Very Charles Kushner of him to do, because he did the same thing with McGreevey in New Jersey. He got caught for that. He's getting the sentence for that too. So that was just another thing they did. Then there's Teresa McIntyre, and I found two other culprits in that case, Angela Chu and Nabil Najani. Nabil Najani and Angela Chu were working with Greenberg, doing the kickback system for fraudulent SBA loans, Small Business Association. And that's where he was getting the fake COVID money and fake disaster relief for this Greenberg media. And his other one is this Greenberg dentistry with his family. His parents got involved in this crap. They paid the bills of AB, the 17-year-old. They paid all her legal fees, trying to get her to continue to pressure, like, don't worry, we'll pay for all that. So they got sued, like the whole Greenberg family. Christopher Dorthworth dropped the suit after Greenberg went to jail on 6 different felonies. But the guy only has 11 years because he plea bargained with a fake case about Matt Gaetz, and then he told on everybody. He told on Joseph Elcott. He was the former assistant he's assistant deputy tax collector. So Joel was the top guy, and he was under him. And he got 15 months in prison for bribes to greenback. And he was also illegally selling Adderall, which is basically meth, legalized meth is what that is. And then there was Keith Ingersoll and James Adamsick, and we covered that last time. It was a faulty real estate scam where they were collecting money and falsifying deeds that were never executed. So they say you got this property when you didn't. $12 million they defrauded people. They got caught. That was Greenberg too, getting kickbacks. He helped procure sales and use tax collector money on all this stuff. Guy wasted millions and millions of dollars. This is their like ethical witness against Matt Gaetz. And so it doesn't take a genius to figure out what went down when suddenly Matt Gaetz they're trying to blackmail his dad and him, saying, we'll make this sex transporting thing disappear if you give us $25 million. And we're going to say the $25 million is to help with this rescue mission in Iran to get Robert Libson out, who's dead. And even his family thinks that. They faked proof of life. You're supposed to get fingerprints and blood work, and you can't just have like a video or him holding a sign and a picture. That's so fakeable now. I could fake that, So they didn't do those steps. They made a video, but it was shite. And so the FBI looks at this crap coming from the State Department, which was Mike Pompeo, by the way, former head of CIA, total weasel. Lie, cheat, steal, and laugh about it. That's him. And John Bolton, who is the neocon's neocon. He was behind the Soleimani assassination and destroyed the Hanoi meeting with North Korea. The guy is just he's the white horse of the apocalypse. If you see John Bolton, it's all going to shite. He's the reincarnation of John McCain, you could say. He was giving meeting with ISIS members and Raul al-Sham in Syria. I feel like it's all come back in a circle again. But anyway, they didn't do any of this stuff. And Matt Gaetz went on Tucker Carlson and announced, I know who's behind it. And he named David McGee, who was part of the law firm that was, when they did think he was alive, trying to get this hostage out of Iran, and Bob Kent. And he named attorneys on national television. He's naming attorneys. So you better be right. And he was. But what's peculiar is, how did they know that there even was an investigation into sexual misconduct by the DOJ into Matt Gaetz? How did they think they could make that go away? Like, why would Biden pardon him? And he hadn't been convicted, so you can't pardon someone that isn't convicted. And it's just so sleazy, for the price of 25, but you could just double cross. They were taking that story to businessman to businessman. Joel Greenberg was setting up honey traps and then extorting people for money and saying, well, whether there's a real investigation or not, they're going to say, well, there can be one, but we can prevent this if you pay your protection money. Matt never took the bait, and Joel was banging his own supply, a la Jeffrey style. Either Jeffrey, by the way, the Abercom or Bear Stearns one. They're both Jeffreys. So disgusting. I don't know if we can say you know who I'm talking about. The whole audience knows who I'm talking about. We're talking about Mr. E and Mrs. M. By the way,
Jeffrey.
Yeah, we just call him Jeffrey. According to the calendar, I do believe, is it the 29th or 30th where you are? Is it the 30th yet?
We're on the 30th in the UK.
Okay, so yeah, in America, in some places, kind of both. But the 29th was the anniversary of we'll call her She Witch's trial, Glenn. And then today is the 30th, so that would be the death anniversary of George Walker Bush. Yep. All these goodies are on this calendar. It's like this day in history except true. And anytime some prominent neocon or someone like Bush kicks the bucket, we make a holiday. So compared to his son, he's not so bad. His little W, really, this is all his fault. Like this whole thing, if you want to go back through Clinton, Obama, all that, W really set this off with this second war in Iraq. There wouldn't be we wouldn't have this in Syria. Any of all this crap goes away if not for him.
5 million dead. 5 million dead because of the wars he started, on the wars on terror, and more than half of them women and kids. 5 million dead. Wars on terror.
And Clinton too. The sanctions probably killed close to 1 million of that between the two wars. Bush's father does the highway of death, hundreds of thousands killed there. And then, Clinton and his murderous sanctions and the Balkans war, and then W, who re-invades Iraq and invades Afghanistan to fight the Taliban because Al-Qaeda had a camp there.
Judith, I'm going to put the link, because they're asking about your stuff. I'm going to put the link for Ryan's stories in the description box. I'll put it in the live chat right now. Believe me.
Yeah, ANC Report is where you get the calendar. It's like on my hat. Anti-Neocon is what that means. ANCreport.com. And there's a shop button there. The calendar's on the site, and then all the other stuff is in the shop. But the calendar we mail out ourselves. So you can pre-order it. We don't mail them until the last week of December, but you can pre-order it.
I've got beanies.
And that's so we can add all the stuff that happens in December to it. So
I've got beanies, maps, t-shirts. We even got Baby Ziggy something from his store. Check it out.
Nice. Oh, the little Dawson University onesies.
Yeah.
Hey, these are Adidas. These hats.
With this Gaetz situation, Ryan, wouldn't Trump know all this? And couldn't he have just overridden it? Why did he have to let it all play out?
What I don't understand is, why didn't Trump or anybody in his cabinet just say all the stuff I'm saying right now in the media? Like, this is why you don't like Matt Gaetz, and go over all his positions and say all the stuff with Joel Greenberg and go over the stuff with David McGee and Bob Kent And this other guy, Novak, was it Jake? Yeah, Jake Novak, who worked at the Israeli consulate in New York, and he knew about the DOJ investigation too somehow. So, gee, I wonder who's leaking or spying on the DOJ. Who wants to get a hostage out of Iran? Every time. So, what I want to know, though, is who hacked the ethics committee? Because I know it wasn't hacked. We know this was leaked on purpose and they lied and said, oh, they hacked and they only got the portion we want you to hear. They just made that up and rehashed older accusations because the DOJ investigation found no wrongdoing on Gaetz or Christopher. That was the official conclusion. These women were full of it. They had been strong-armed. Greenberg's parents had paid AB's bills. It's just, there's a part in the, let's see if I can word it. She'll do anything for $1,000, and I'm talking about the most depraved thing imaginable. And I won't say the other part. We'll call her we'll just call her M. Joel Greenberg was a cuck, or not a simp. He fell in love with essentially a prostitute, but they were like friends, and he's like so into this chick. She went to take a shower and he goes through her phone and just sees like airtights, gangbang, Diddy party level stuff. And he's just like, it describes it. He had all this food on the table and he hadn't touched it. He just had his head hanging, and he confronts her about it. And she just like, oh no, baby, da da da. And he just still decided to be her friend. A fate worse than death. And now he's in jail.
Oh dear.
You fell in love with a prostitute. You are so lame.
So does this mean that the person that came in after Matt Gaetz is a different person that's going to serve the agenda?
99% chance, because of the congressmen who have no money from AIPAC, there's Thomas Massey from Kentucky, and then there was Gaetz from Florida. That's pretty much it. And so you can bet it'll just be another swamp creature. The new attorney general, however, Pam Bondi, isn't that terrible compared to some of his other picks. So she might get something done, but she's no Matt Gaetz. People do not understand the battle we just lost. He was good. He entered Hunter Biden's laptop into the congressional record. He had a SSD. He goes, well, first he asked, if you don't know where it is, you can't locate it. They're like, no, because that's unbelievable. Well, I have it right here. So I'm going to enter it into the record. Boom. And they're just gasp around the room. Dude, like gangster. And he talked about Jeffrey. He said, I think a foreign state had him killed. Yeah. But they outsourced that to local mob. And you'd have to have a New York connection to get in that jail. We all know who the former senator of New York was.
Yeah, it was fascinating listening to him say that. I was quite surprised. That was really good of him to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. He wanted troops out of Syria, like I said. So many good things. He said, we're not having boots on the ground in Gaza. What? Is that are you an American congressman? That's amazing. Of course we shouldn't, but none of you ever say that. And he was grilling Lloyd Austin. He goes, so you think boots on a pier that is attached to the ground isn't boots on the ground? He's like, it's not. Like, oh, I think the American people are going to disagree. Thing is, all these great clips of Matt Gaetz, I don't think most people ever saw, because it was the pre-Elon days. And pre-Elon, you're not allowed, the system doesn't advertise its losses. So you're not allowed to see anything based that anyone ever did or said until X. And then it took about a year of getting rid of the bad staff and da da da. That's why I have a little bit of hope for what's going on in Syria and what's going on with Trump's cabinet circus and everything, is that faster and faster the news is getting out because you actually have a place to put it. And more the legacy media is dying. So you have a few shows like this left on YouTube, but most everyone else has been canceled, and you have to self-censor, and a whole bunch of your videos got taken down, and then you got demonetized. Da, da, da. So, but with X, Telegram, and then Substack, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, there are places to put stuff, and then through Twitter you can link to those things. So some like Trump's speeches that were on Rumble for years that no one saw got thrown on Twitter, and boom, everyone's like, wow, is this really Donald Trump? Did he really talk about a digital bill of rights? Did he say this? Did he say that? Yeah, he did. Because True Social, is more than zero, but it wasn't enough. You have to have something of the legacy alt media, and X is that. There was Twitter, YouTube, and Meta. Those were the big ones, which is Instagram and Facebook. Well, the Meta's no, YouTube, no. Although a little bit better. I mean, there's your show, there's Judge Napolitano's show. There's some good things here and there, but you're walking on eggshells. It's a matter of time. You're all going to get banned, unless you can make it to January 20th.
So we've had Keir Starmer, this bastion of free speech, threaten Elon Musk, and we've had European governments threaten Elon Musk in the past. Now, when Elon Musk becomes part of the US government, can he reverse that? Will he then have the power to tell European governments, here's what you need to do, otherwise America's...
Well, I think Doge is not part of the U.S. government. It's part of what we call the kitchen cabinet. So the official cabinet with salaried positions. And then you have Vivek and Elon and maybe even Dr. Ron Paul kind of in an advisory, unofficial role saying, look at this waste, look at that waste, and they can make suggestions. And then people in the actual government can start canning departments and firing people and saving money, which would be beautiful. Well, we saw Brazil take on Elon, and what happened? They did ban Twitter for not very long, and the public there was so outraged because they all enjoy it that now it's back again. So Europe is just shooting itself in the foot again. If you're going to try and ban that or TikTok or any of these, dude, you got hundreds of millions of people that use these apps. You can't just take them away. They're going to be mad at you, not Elon, not Singapore. They're going to be mad at you. Same. I mean, the U.S. banned TikTok, but they said in a certain number of days. We'll see if that happens. I would put that at a 0.1% chance.
All right. So I watched an interview with David Icke recently, and he said, previously I've subscribed to all politicians to get to the top of psychopaths, and I've never voted because I believe it's an illusion of choice. They always keep war going, for example. Now, I watched David Icke the other day, and what he said was Elon is being portrayed as this freedom of speech, heroic figure, but the Trump and Elon, David Icke's trying to say the whole thing, power is so entrenched in the institutions over the decades, over the centuries, that, the public get this hope when these new characters come in, but the power is so entrenched, there's not much they can do about it when it comes to the big issues. Do we have hope here that these guys, coming in?
I think he's right on. In all previous situations, there's so much pressure and it didn't matter because they ran all of mass media. The difference between now and every other situation before is they no longer have a monopoly on media. So you can actually show the corruption. And when you do that, you can put billionaires in jail. Diddy's in jail. Harvey Weinstein's in jail. Peter Nygaard went to jail. Jean-Luc Brunel went to jail. Maxwell went to jail. The other guy who we're not allowed to say went to jail and killed himself, allegedly all by himself. You can put Peter Nygaard, another billionaire, jail. You can do that only when there's public pressure and awareness. While it's happening in the dark, they honestly don't care. But they have to throw some people under the bus. They're going to have to chip away at it. I don't imagine there will be great change. But if they can end the war in Ukraine, I'll take that as a win. That's good enough for me. I'd love to fix the entire Middle East policy, the monetary policy. I'd like to re-audit the Fed or get rid of it completely. I'd get rid of departments. I'd get rid of the CIA. If that's what David means, that's not going to happen. But will we gain further free speech and have a higher quality of life than we did the last 4 years? Yes, we will. And it's just going to have to keep going up in steps like that. I don't see any kind of giant revolution coming or anything, but if journalists were allowed to be journalists again and actually monetize their work without fear of being canceled, that would be major. And that would encourage is contagious. If these stories go like Greenberg's in jail, half the people I name, they got some sort of punishment. But the only reason that thing got attention is because they went after Gaetz. If you look at every story of Joel Greenberg, every title is Matt Gaetz' associate Joel did this. Matt Gaetz' friend Joel did this. They're all about Matt Gaetz. He didn't do anything. Go ahead. Anybody, go look it up. Like Joel Greenberg, 11-year sentence. Put that in Google. The first 20 things are going to come up with Matt Gaetz' name in it, even though he had nothing to do with it. They're like, well, he knew the guy. That's how they're. And the same thing with Jeffrey. It was only when they thought that was going to lead back to Trump that they gave it attention. And then it didn't. In fact, they hate each other. They were friends, and then they were definitely not friends. He was competing with Mark. And so were the Kushners. The story. I'm afraid to talk about it because I don't want to get you kicked off. But that map, that would not have happened without Trump as president. It wouldn't happen.
You got a question from Seth. Do you think Elon knows about the secret UFO programs?
Okay, when you mean unidentified flying object, which does not mean alien, it just means any kind of craft from any country that is unknown. We just found an unidentified flying missile, this new hypersonic missile. The first stealth bomber was a UFO for a long time. And when people were talking about triangle lights over Mexico, they were correct. It just wasn't aliens. It was a stealth bomber. I mean, they're talking about secret projects in Area 51. True, but they're all terrestrial. I think a lot of this extraterrestrial stuff is just clickbait nonsense. They did not deconstruct alien spacecraft or anything of that. It's trust me that there's no collusion with space critters or anything like that. But UFOs are very real and very serious, and the cover for getting into that is, well, you thought it was weather balloon. They usually are wasting billions of dollars on these NATO weapons and NATO type of aircraft, and they don't work. The F-35 is a great example. And they cover it up by saying, you think there's Martians from Mars or whatever, and that's just not the case. However, I have seen Rabbi Shmuley, so I'm not sure what that is. Maybe that's ET. That's hard to explain terrestrially.
Question from Claudia. Ryan, do you have any views on Eastern Africa, Eritrea, Somalia, Ethiopia? I heard there's been saber rattling there.
Yeah, the Horn of Africa. Well, obviously, the big thing is the civil war in Sudan. And part of that is exacerbated by Ethiopia building these new dams. They refilled and they did another reservoir. See, a lot of water from the Nile River, which goes through the Sudans and Egypt, starts in Ethiopia, the Blue Nile. And Ethiopia, because 50% of its electricity is based on these new dams, they need it. But in doing that, they're depriving water to Sudan and Egypt, which makes them have to import more crops because they can't irrigate them themselves. And a double whammy for Egypt was, since they couldn't irrigate their crops and they had to import more because of the dam on the Blue Nile, a lot of grain was coming from Ukraine. And the Ukraine corridor got shut off because they were using it to attack Crimea. So they cut that off. And then there's sanctions on Russia, so they couldn't get that. So it causes tension within Egypt and shortens food supplies, puts on scarcity level. In Sudan, it's worse. Of course, you have the RSF fighting with the Sudanese forces there. Russia could end up with a naval base on the port of Sudan, because they're going to have to exchange something big for support, because Hamidi, leader of the RSF, is backed by the UAE, 90% of the smuggled gold from Sudan ends up in the UAE. Him and his brother and cousin, all these people have bank accounts up there, and they're winning that war slowly. They took out some Wagner forces too. It's really interesting there. And yeah, why doesn't Sudan or Egypt just attack Ethiopia? Well, Egypt's military is slightly bigger, but they really can't afford protracted war. And so they're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate that with the water. I don't know how to fix that. What they ask about Eritrea. Yeah, I mean, Eritrea broke away from Ethiopia. They can't stand each other, but they have a good relationship with Italy. I don't see any major changes there. Somalia, God, Somalia is it's a basket case with the pirates in Aden, and you have all these factions in Al Shabaab, and they're all Saudi funded, by the way, which means they keep that place in stagnation. And a lot of places in Ethiopia too are victims of what I call international predatory lending. And so you'll get that from the IMF, for example, with intentionally bad loans to create perpetual debts, which ends up inflating currencies and keeping them in a dependency state type of relationship, getting loan number 2 to pay for loan number 1, but they'll never loan for manufacturing or some means of producing wealth themselves out of raw goods. No, they'll give you for infrastructure. They'll give it to you for something that doesn't have turnover for extremely long time, like a school, hospital, or something. They're not revenue producing. And so they go in further and further in debt. And then what do? They lease land for 99-year chunks and ridiculous things like that. Or they sell the raw resources, or they'll allow someone like Glencore, a giant commodity company, formerly Mark Rich, who's on that map, by the way. They come in and they'll get the gold, the rubber, the chocolate, the whatever resource, like, in Ghana it's chocolate, Ivory Coast is gold and chocolate, Sudan is gold, so uranium from Niger, blah, blah, blah. That they get it cheap pennies on the dollar, and then they turn the raw African resources into finished products, sell them back to Africa, which is paid for with the loans. And so they'll take the rubber, turn it into tires, sell the tires back to Africa, who's going into debt to get what they could have made themselves. And so Ghana and Ivory Coast, I know you didn't ask about this, but I'm going to talk about West Africa too. They have broken away and said, we're not going to take, and Eritrea did this too, we're not going to take these IMF loans. We're going to process our raw goods into finished products ourselves and consume them and sell and export them if we can. And boy, the French didn't like that. And there's this ongoing, all this economic sabotage and stuff. And that's why you'll see, suddenly flare up a Boko Haram in Nigeria, fighting with the Christians again. And they're just lighting the match on sectarian nonsense. Same thing with South Sudan and Sudan, Christian, Muslim, this Muslim sect versus this Muslim sect, this other sect, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a bunch of banksters shenanigans. I actually made a film about Zambia and the copper mining there. You guys can watch, it's free. You can watch that film on my site, and then it's rinse and repeat. Like what I describe in there, it's the same like MO you could apply to pick a place, to Kenya, to Sudan, Sudan's even worse, to wherever. It's the same game, same gambit. And it's the Swiss too. It's not, it was like, is this America, the UK? I'm like, yeah, no, it's the French too. I mean, there's a lot of Africa speaks French for a reason. It's all of them, but it's not so much the United States this time. The United States exploits South America and Europe exploits Africa. It's generally how it goes. And people say, what about the Chinese? The Chinese will come in and give them a cut hair better deal. And it's still exploitation. And they are desperate for a deep water port somewhere in Eastern Africa. And there's this game, and the U.S. is involved in this, at blocking China access. And so part of the reason, too, for fostering violence in Somalia and Yemen is because it's what they call the Maritime Silk Road and has choking points. And one of them's Aden in the Red Sea. One of them's the Suez Canal. One's the mouth of the Black Sea, one's the Panama Canal. You can see the flow of maritime traffic and goods. If you can control one of these spots, It's like you got a chokehold on the Maritime Silk Road. And Socotra is another one that's part of Yemen. It's an island, but it's Yemen too. They have a port there. And so they control this flow. And it's this game. It makes everything more expensive between Europe and Asia and stuff. I wish this stuff could get straightened out. But there's no one to even go to. It's not Anthony Lake or anything. There's nobody to present this massive problem. I don't even know how to like squish it all down, because I could be talking about this for hours and hours and hours. What's wrong with Africa? They have the most resources in the world and some of the poorest countries in the world. And it's so much internal corruption, domestic corruption, like, oh, the snake ate it kind of stuff. Oh, where'd the money go? It's almost unfixable because honestly, nobody cares. They think it's just inevitable, and it's not. And then in Latin America, it's like everything I just said, plus cocaine. Oh, wait, sorry, I said the word. Plus powder. Yeah, plus white. Yeah.
You got a lot of people, Ryan.
The narco-socialism added to that. It's not, it's so bad.
A lot of people, including Trevor, are asking whether you think Diddy will make it to trial.
I think he'll make it to May. I hope so. That might be my wishful thinking, because I really want this seen through and all these other heads to roll. But you're definitely right that he's got a target on his back for sure. One thing that will make that harder, like you can see, Jeffrey's lady made it to trial in jail, because what they did to Jeffrey, everyone's eyes are on Diddy. If they do that again, I think all trust in the judicial and jailing system is gone. One more of those, and this is okay. Y'all are just gonna kill them, and yeah, I don't know. That might be worse for them than just letting them rot.
With Gaetz resigning, is he able to fight the charges he is accused of, or what does he think? What do you think Gaetz' next move will be?
Well, this is the thing. The actual legal investigation done by the Justice Department already cleared him of all charges. They didn't charge him with anything, just accusations. Charged and legal, not like charging colloquial, like, oh, you've been charged with it. They already cleared him. He has no wrongdoing. The ethics committee, which is not any kind of judicial body or anything, was just looking into sexual misconduct and then never released their report because he's no longer in Congress. Well, duh. If he'd really done something illegal like transporting or banging a minor, it doesn't matter whether you're in Congress or not. You're still going to get prosecuted, which means we already know the conclusions were the same as the DOJ's, that no wrongdoing. It was just a bunch of nonsense, that Greenberg and these ladies conspired, and they did it to more than Gaetz. They did all these people they were blackmailing. The whole thing came unraveled. That's why they only released the accusations and not the conclusions, that these women were full of it. So he doesn't have any charges to beat. But his reputation, he's got the defamation from the ethics committee. But there's things like, well, we didn't release that. It was hacked. So let's find the hacker. I promise you're never going to find the hacker, because that's made up. They leaked it on purpose.
Talking about hackers, they've just attacked your stream again, Ryan. They've only knocked 300 off it this time. Last time, I think it was a lot more.
600 last time.
Yeah, 600. This only happens when we have Ryan on. Literally, hundreds of people. All of a sudden, it gets attacked. And hundreds.
Why?
Of people
I was talking about Africa. I mean, what was it? I wonder. I'd like to find the minute mark. I don't know.
Well, I'll the minute.
You guys should watch that though. It's called like "What's Keeping Africa Poor." It's on ancreport.com. You click on films and just look for the Africa one. It's nice. It's a neat little film.
If mods or anyone wants to go back over this stream, they started to attack Ryan's stream at 1 hour 3 minutes, and by 1 hour 4 minutes, 300 people have been knocked off. So there's the timestamp.
They do that on X too.
Do they?
Yeah, there's still some bad apples there. Yeah.
Okay.
I can look at my social blade, and it'll be like flatline and then up like 9,000 and then down and up. I'll watch it go up and down 100 followers and then minus 90 and then up 200 and then minus 150. Just It's
I'm
all
fascinated.
woke,
I'm
whatever.
fascinated they can even do this. This is crazy.
I'm just glad I get to be on it all. I was banned from everything for like 15 years. When I hear someone like, I'm not making enough money on X, I'm like, that you can make any money on X is amazing. I'm glad I'm even allowed to be on X. That's how bad it was alone in the oven, you know.
Looks like a lot of people have come back. Put a 1 in the chat if you got bumped off and you've come back. Put a 2 in the chat if you didn't get bumped off the stream. Ryan's streams are under attack. All right, so you got a question from Anita. What effect will BRICS have on the dollar? And do you think they will be able to get out of the SWIFT system?
I hope there's an alternative to SWIFT. I don't think they're going to abandon the dollar. They already had their giant meeting and looked at the dollar. People have these fantasies like we're going to get off the petrodollar. Listen, it's not just the petrodollar. It's all international trades of all products are in dollars, not just gas and oil. It's the everything dollar. Good luck replacing that. Now, there are bilateral trades that people do in their own currencies. So if Japan and Korea doing machine parts or something, they'll use the won and the yen sometimes. That happens. It doesn't affect the dollar very much. People hold dollars in reserve because they're easy to liquidate. And because it's tied to the largest economy by fucking far, by trillions, and the largest military, and there's the most influence. You're just good luck. But the SWIFT system is different. This is sort of like all of us who've been banned from PayPal. If there's something, it doesn't matter what the value of the dollar is or what you can buy with it or whatever. In your head, it's zero if you know that no matter how many dollars you have in reserve, that they could freeze them all for political reasons. That's what's damaging the dollar, not what currency you decide to choose to buy, this and that, whatever. They're fine. Like, people are going to accept dollars because you can exchange them for goods from the United States, which is a lot of stuff. Most of you have an Apple or Microsoft or something, or you watch Disney, like you can use them. Anyway, I don't think there's going to be a collapse of the dollar or any of these fantasies that people say, oh, and that's it. They'll get off the petrodollar. Da, 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 da. India and Japan got off the petrodollar years ago. This is the second and third largest at the time economies on earth. Nothing happened to the dollar. It doesn't matter.
Is that why the dollar strengthened since Trump's got in? Because
they're mad that China buys treasury bonds. They're always, that's where a lot of it is China and Japan buying all these bonds. They're trying to get you to have less reserves. And so you're like, well, we'll get rid of it. Like, great. Like, that's much to do with nothing.
If you're continuously funding wars and printing money, wouldn't that lead to hyperinflation and the destruction of the dollar?
It does lead to inflation, and whether you have a war or not, just printing money for whatever. If you print money without it being tied to labor, then the value of whatever currency you just printed, or they don't print them, they digitize it into existence, but whatever. If you're expanding the money supply without expanding the labor tied to acquiring the money, then your money gets devalued. And they do that. And the wars and things are just an added bonus of what the stupid ways they spend the money they just created out of thin air. And yeah, it creates inflation every year. Things are more and more expensive. I mean, it's like, that is the whole thing. Why did a Coke cost 20 cents or 5 cents? And now they're what, $1 or something? Inflation. It wasn't the higher demand for Cokes or anything. It was just the money is not worth as much because there's more of it without an increase in labor. The reason that $1 has value or whatever, a pound or something, is because it took X amount of time to acquire it. So if you're making $10 an hour, you're like, that took an hour of my time shoveling sand or working retail or whatever to get this many dollars. So you're unwilling to let go of those. Like, no, that wasn't. And this took a whole day of my time to get this many dollars. So that's why it has value. I had to do A, B, and C amount of work to get this. If you start expanding it, if you just print it, then they'll start handing it out. But the more that goes around and you expand the money supply, and the easier it is to get dollars, the less value they have. It's that simple.
And you're getting asked if that's how they devalue labor as well. Yeah, because if labor doesn't, if pay doesn't rise with inflation, then labor's getting devalued.
Yep. And with inflation, yet you have fixed wages, so your wages don't really go up. Then you're making less, even though it's the same amount. That amount doesn't buy as much stuff. If you look at a basket of currencies, like how much bread, milk, gasoline, could I buy for this many pounds or whatever, it's less and less every year. And it's not because each one of those commodities went up in price because they whatever, there's a shortage of this and that. No, it's inflation. That's the bulk of it.
Next question is from W. What would NATO do if Russia attacked Norway? I think the question should be, why would Russia attack Norway?
I mean, for what? Like that's not in their first strike, second strike, or third strike plan. It's not. And they'd have to roll through Finland first and Sweden.
The impression I'm getting is that Putin is saying that if any more long-range missiles get fired into Russia with the help of NATO, he's going to strike NATO targets in surrounding countries. Is that correct?
What he'd do, the threat is, if you continue to hit us with ATACMS and you hit us inside Russia, then we will strike Poland and Romania, where these factories are and where the planes are, where you have these things. That, like, as long as they don't have it in Ukraine, they know it can't be attacked. So you could put a factory right on the edge in the border with Poland, just making missiles all day, and they see it there, but they can't hit it because it's in Poland. So you can't hit NATO. But then screw that. If you're going to do this, you're going to hit side of Russia. We will blow that up, is what they're saying.
And Ukraine does not have the technology, the people, they can't launch these missiles. It's NATO doing it for them. So, Ryan, earlier on,
they don't have satellites up there for missiles. Yeah.
Earlier on, I was saying, the Western media here, Putin's this mad dog. He's going to invade Poland. So what I'm perceiving now is they're going to fire these missiles into Russia. Putin is going to bomb some NATO missile facility on the border that's there in Poland. And then all these pundits in the UK are going to say, we told you so. He's bombing Poland. This is a NATO country.
All right. Will you take your 80,000 soldiers from the UK, all, one soccer stadium or whatever, and go fight Russia? Good luck. Look, there's America and Turkey that have real militaries, and arguably France. Everyone else is toast. And the U.S. doesn't have the political will, he's just elected a president to get out of Ukraine, who's saying NATO needs to pay its fair share. Maybe we don't even need NATO. Okay. So that's pretty thin ice. You really want to pick a fight with Russia? If I lived in Britain, I would worry about your borders, and your stabbings and your domestic problems, your food. I would take care of that. The London food in the UK is not horrible, but London is another level. It does fit the stereotype.
So, question from AU: raising the money supply, where does the biggest share of this go? Is it to the
first the first people that get hold of it. So the first, when you expand it, it doesn't trickle out evenly. And the people printing it. So the banks will loan to their buddies first. Where it goes. But the big industries, the big parasites, you could call them, are weapons, pharmaceuticals, and energy. That's the big ones.
Beth wants to know why you live where you live.
I don't live in Japan anymore. I live in Korea. But I moved to Japan. I speak Japanese. When Bush got reelected, I thought, I'm out of here. Because they voted for him even after they knew he lied about the Iraq War. And it wasn't like Kerry was any different. And I was just going to come over for like a year. And just once I got to an actual first world country, it's hard to go back. And I have children, and we don't have shootings in our schools. You don't understand. In Asia, you don't even see, in proper Asia, not jungle Asia. In proper Asia, there's not even a cigarette on the street. Everything's clean. It's the lowest crime rate in the world, the lowest infant mortality rate in the world, the highest IQ in the world, the longest life expectancy in the world. Like, I can go through the chart for Japan or Korea, and they win on everything. So why would I live in America, which is like last in education for first world, ridden with crime, drug problems, corruption, you name it. They suck on everything. And for me, it's not even safe. The way I've been debanked is censored. And I'll start my car one day and bam, I get death threats. And then my kids wouldn't be safe either. I'm not putting them through that crap. So I live on the other side of the world where I'm allowed to use a bank and do things that normal people are allowed to do, and not get harassed. Sad to say. And I like the South. I like the parts of America, but I don't want to live there when I can live here. The average weight of American women is 170 pounds. Japan's 116. That's supermodel level. And that's the average. People are healthier. They live longer. They're more polite. They're smarter. That is not just higher IQ. It's just they're more engaged. They're more aware. They're not following the Kardashians and smoking weed every day. And that kind of crap just doesn't exist. That thug life stuff, Ebonics, DEI, men in the women's locker room, pregnant men, all that crap doesn't exist in East Asia. So, it's hard to learn a new language, but if you can, there's no reason to ever live in the West when you could live in a proper country.
So AP wants to know if they're going to target Assad this time.
Oof. They've been wanting to, but they could end up with something worse. Assad's pretty measured. He's an optometrist. The decapitation strategy, you saw that against Hezbollah and Hamas. They killed Sinwar, they killed Nasrallah. It didn't matter. It's not like Assad is some super genius statesman or something. He'll just be replaced by the next one, and it won't be any different for them. And it would just invigorate everybody to avenge him. So I don't know. I think they are going to try to assassinate Trump again. That's a guy that doesn't really have a replacement. Everyone's a swamp creature. Maybe Vance. But yeah, I don't think they're done going after Trump. This dude, as bad as he is still a major change and against some of the establishment.
Got a question from the YouTube community wall from Consciousness Reality. Ryan, will anyone else of stature be known before the year ends? And do you think there's a 3-letter society in every country controlling the world? And will they ever be stopped, and by who? Wow, good question.
It's a 5-letter acronym, APAC, not 3. Like, William Burns, the current head of the CIA, is a Jeffrey client. So they got him. Blackmail and bribery are the way of the world. I made a little skit on that, the self-licking ice cream cone. And that is the way things go. Some places are a little better than others, but until there is real free speech so that enough of the masses can even know about this. If people knew the stuff I know about how this works, it wouldn't be that way. But I can't reach enough people. I don't even have enough time. And the stuff I've made has been erased, canceled. I've been defamed for, they call me a Holocaust denier and all this other shit. And I'm not, by the way, but it's just going to they'll just say whatever, they accuse people of racism, sexism, transporting, blah, 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 whatever, to smear you. That has to end. But I really think their soft spot is the press. If you can fix the media, it fixes everything after that. Every time they start a war, they have to lie to you first. So if you took away their ability to lie, then you take away their ability to do war. Everything they do hinges on lying. Truth will set you free. So if we have the proper media, I feel like that would unravel this whole gambit. You're not going to stop people from taking bribes. It's hard to stop blackmailers if the people who are supposed to be policing it are also being blackmailed. But you got to shine light. Hey, so and so bribed the Palm Beach County Police Department, which Jeffrey did through an LLC, Science America. He's paying him $100,000 to leave him alone. So they did. If that story had broke, then they wouldn't have gotten away with that. So everything hinges on having free speech.
Question from Captain B on Twitter. Can Ryan explain why the West wants regime change in Syria, who the moderate rebels and other militant groups are, and who funds them? Will Russia prop up Assad this time and prevent the coup?
So Russian Air Force is already supporting Assad fighting these groups. There aren't any moderates. Assad is moderate. There are no moderate rebels. The FSA is what they would claim it was, the Free Syrian Army. It's just composed of Aral al-Sham and al-Nusra Front, which has been rebranded as HTS. It's just Al-Qaeda. That's all it is. It's a bunch of Al-Qaeda affiliates. And then you have the Kurdish faction in Rojava annexing land, and America squatting on it, protecting that annexation, preventing anybody from taking it from them. And earlier, before, you had the Muslim Brotherhood and some other factions in there, like 50 different countries ganged up on Syria. It's not in the West's interest. It's in who's interest. And who runs the rest. They got them by the shorties, hold them by the short hairs because of the bribery and blackmail I just described. It's AIPAC. That country that I'm not allowed to say, and that there you go. Like, I can talk about America all day, but I can't talk about this other place. And this other place wants to topple Syria because they see that as the conduit between Iran and Hezbollah. And they need Hezbollah out of the way so they can annex territory all the way up to the Litani River, which they want. They want greater that place.
Question from DFS. Ryan, are they washing all the FTX money in Ukraine?
Well, Sam Bankman-Fried's in jail with Diddy, by the way. But they did wash money from Ukraine, crypto money that ended up at the DNC, a lot of it. Bank Gustra used to do that for the Clintons. I don't know why I say used to. Probably still does. There was a similar thing going on in Costa Rica, and then another one in Puerto Rico, and another one in the Bahamas where they're washing money. And Gustra's was in Canada, but they were getting people from Haiti transporting sick stuff, man, like bestiality. If you want to look into it, if you want to turn that dark page, stuff they did with people and dogs and stuff, that was there, dude. It's so gross. And these crypto bums, they hang out on these islands. There's a man who was drowned in his own bathtub and then thrown into the ocean, who tried to blow the whistle. And y'all can figure that out on your own. But yeah, that was all involved, that Sam Bankman-Fried case. Freed, whatever I call him, fraud. That was $32 billion. Never going to be repaid.
Oof.
$32 billion.
Where did it go?
Up Zelensky's nose, probably. It's a lot of it went to the DNC. They are notorious for wasting money. I mean, Kamala raised $1 billion, and she's still $20 million in the hole, buying celebrities to endorse her.
That worked out well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Question from AU.
It has to burn when Trump's doing his YMCA dance, going Beyonce.
Question from AU. Is Russian strategy to have these rebels come out of cover so now they can annihilate them in the open?
Yeah, I've heard this like 40 chess stuff. Well, now that the terrorists out of Turkey and Idlib are out, Assad has a pretext to go ahead and finish them off in that Afrin area. But I think that was just this circumstantial consequence. They are trying to retake Aleppo. They are trying to cause another hornet's nest in Syria and give Russia more problems attacking their allies. We don't need another Syrian war. We don't need another giant sectarian fight. And that happened in Lebanon all throughout the 80s too. That's the original giant sectarian war. We don't need this. But that is their desired plot. That place, that's what I mean by they, somebody deserves one of these, put this out in policy papers. It's not a conspiracy. I mean, this is policy, written, overt, in your face. You can go read it, policy. Check out Oded Yinon, Oded Yinon, and read the strategies for and fill in the country name. You can check this on my site too. I have it on the forum. They laid out everything that happened to Iraq, Libya, all this. When they say that sort of infamous clip of General Clark getting a paper from upstairs that said, it's a list of countries to bomb. Upstairs is a Defense for Policy board from Richard Pearl, who got caught spying for the country I'm not allowed to talk about. Premier architect of the war, Prince of Darkness. He worked for Netanyahu. I mean, he's writing policy papers for a foreign head of state while he's working in the Defense Department, which is treason. But they own America. They own the American government and the media. And that's why you need alt media to point that out. Look at the ownership class. If they were all Chinese, I would think, gee, maybe the state of China has something to do with this. Wouldn't be a stretch.
Does Ryan know what the Thousand Lights phrase Bush Sr. said in his speeches meant?
Do you mean the light on the hill thing? I don't know if he said Thousand Lights, but that shining city
is a follow-up one.
It's reference to Jerusalem.
What was written in the mysterious letters to Hillary, Obama, and the Bushes at Bush Sr.'s funeral?
Oh, the folder that went around?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that could have been any number of things. But, it's sort of they let you see that they had a folder. So, but I don't know, man. Obama, Bushes, the Clintons have so many things in common. All their policies are essentially the same. So who knows?
When are you and your brother doing more videos on the war of northern aggression?
He'll probably have time during Christmas break to do that with me. So probably pretty soon.
Has Ryan heard of Cliff High, and does he have any thoughts on the 3rd, 4th December prediction?
Haven't heard of him. So I don't know what he said. Sorry.
Ryan, what's your thoughts on Alex Jones and Elon Musk bailing out InfoWars? What is your opinion on this relationship? And also possibly Elon buying MSNBC?
I would love for him to buy MSNBC. Everybody knows I can't stand Alex Jones. Alex Jones talked about mother of all bombing, Moabbing, cluster bomb Moabs on Gaza and blowing it up inch by inch. So fuck him. And Elon Musk is a fool if he buys out InfoWars. Alex Jones absolutely did tell everybody that Sandy Hook was a bunch of actors and stuff and rightly got sued. So fuck him.
And MSNBC is owned by Comcast.
Yeah.
So they would have to. It is for sale, is it?
Yeah. And can you imagine MSNBC and it's Tucker Carlson and Elon, maybe bring back Napolitano, bring back Megyn Kelly, get the band back together again. Or you could go dark mode with Jones and Elon and just turn it into a circus. Or you could go even darker mode, hire someone like me.
That'd be fun. I can't imagine. Should we be buying shows then?
Oh, dude, first thing I get up and be like, we're going to read the client list right now on TV. Here we go.
Should we be investing in Comcast on the stock market then?
Oh, well, you're the stock trader. I mean, you can give that advice.
Well, Twitter doubled, didn't it? Once he started hinting he was going to buy Twitter.
We don't know if he's actually going to buy it or he's just in love with the meme because he is sort of like that.
Or whether he's.
But he did ask how much it was to Donald Jr. He said it was for sale, and Elon said how much. I think he kind of said that to get excitement about it. But who knows, man? If there's enough pressure, just imagine a television network that didn't lie. Of course, you'd have to get rid of Jones. But
Comcast is worth 163 billion US dollars. So I imagine it would be a transaction. It wouldn't be a complete buyout of the company where Comcast would sell MS. They would sell it to Elon directly, not through the stock market.
Yeah, he wouldn't be getting majority shares or whatever. They sell the company to him. But I don't know how much it costs or whatever. But he's got the money. I mean, they wouldn't do a poison trade like they did to Twitter to him. But I don't know, man. Like, he is the richest man in the world, and that would be a vast improvement. I used to call it MSNPC. They're just nothing, Carol Russia. Every propaganda about medical this and that and all things we're not allowed to talk about came from them.
Totally. All right.
They hung on Kamala and they lost. And now, fire Rachel Maddow, fire all these clowns that work on that network, and they'll disappear. If they reappear on X like Tucker did, no one will listen to them. The power of the machine is the only thing that keeps them around. Look at Don Lemon. What happened to him when he got banned? Nothing. I have more listeners than him. Like, he's a nobody.
What do you think of the Democrats planning the next presidential election? Are they really so dumb?
AOC. I think AOC is one of their better ones. Like, they're cooked, man. If Trump gets in and does 1/10 of what he's promising, then it's going to be Vance. It's just going to be Republicans for the next 12 years or so. The salt's going to be great. They don't really have anyone. They're all crooks and thieves, and this woke BS did them in. No one wants to go back to the days of male periods and
Has Ryan ever talked about the Vegas incident? Heard Paddock was a dealer.
I did. I talked about it with Eddie Bravo on Rockfin. If you want to go check that out, that is definitely not safe on YouTube.
How many languages do you speak, Ryan?
3.
What do you think about Madeleine McCann?
It just seems like their parents killed her. I don't want to say that without evidence, but just the story. If I'm thinking of the right incident in Portugal, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, let's move on.
I mean, I can't remember it very well, but I just remember thinking, I don't think she's kidnapped. It was very irresponsible for them to just leave a girl that age while they went to a party or something. It was like really sus. But it was not the Podestas. The police sketch that came out.
Yeah, let's stay with
one guy.
Right. We've just been warned about this stuff. All right. So thoughts on Ilana Danal? Don't even know who that is.
I don't either.
All right. Thoughts on Australia under 16 social media ban?
It's just Australia. No, that's horrible, obviously. But Australia and the Kiwi next to it have never had free speech. I don't know what the pretext is, but people are just going to lie and go, yeah, I'm 17, whatever. It's going to make it worse if you're going after transporting and those kind of things. You're going to drive it underground. You're going to make it worse. Why can't someone who's 16 use social media? Why not? Your parents just need to be responsible for them. You can limit it in certain ways. You can like Korea bans pornography for all ages. You can't, just don't have it. Maybe you should do something like that if that's what you're worried about. But people still get to it, but they're gonna have to make it way more difficult. You won't have industries because they can't get paid to make it. They can grab it internationally or whatever, but there will be penalties for it. So there's things that can be done. Everyone says, oh, you can't stop drugs. Oh, you can't stop this. Like, yeah, you can. If they're serious about it. But they aren't. They act like it's just some inevitable thing. No, it isn't.
They're making money off it all. Keith wants to know about the Club of Rome.
Minor league. It's like Bilderberg. It's kind of almost nothing burger. Don't waste your day on it.
Which podcasts besides this one are credible for real news and info?
You talking about on YouTube or just in general?
In general.
Well, I like a bunch of them. I think Judge Napolitano is great on YouTube. He's got a good guest. Matthew Ho is coming on this show. He's on that
he's phenomenal.
on
He's coming
Tuesday.
back tonight. Yeah,
He's been on my show a few times too. Good guy. He was just in Gaza for like 8 days or something. I'm going to interview him too. But Napolitano's show is good. Scott Horton's show is good for the Libertarian Institute. That's a good one. Actually, if you go to my Substack, like whoever I'm recommending on Substack, like those people. Now, it depends what you're into. That's all political stuff. If you just want some great, mindless nonsense, Jim Cornette going over wrestling stories and stuff is awesome. I like the Tate's show, Tate Speech. It's kind of all things. It's on Rumble, Tate Speech. They're hilarious. And they do talk about serious stuff too. I was on talking about Gaetz on their show the other day. That's a good one. So the Horton Napolitano, that's pretty big range. Tucker's got a nice one on X. You know, he's got some good guests. And Joe Rogan's improving. It's hit or miss there to get, you know, you look, see who he's talking to, and then, you know, you decide whether you want to listen to that or not. But that one's not bad. And then Martyr Made, man, Daryl Cooper, excellent on historical events and all these things we were talking about. He's great. He's on Substack. So there's some. Yeah.
I'm just put the link for the Matthew Ho interview this evening into the live chat and the description box. So he's coming on at 8 p.m. UK peeps. If you want to come and check that out.
He was in the Lion's Den.
Are the rumors that the view is being taken off the air?
I hope so. That is the worst show ever. It's just like rage bait. I can't listen to 2 sentences of those women.
Which leaders in the West aren't compromised by blackmail of some sort?
None. Viktor Orban from Hungary.
Really?
The nations that aren't totally compromised are Hungary, Slovakia. You think? Serbia. That's it that I can think of in the West, in Europe, or in the US. Yeah.
Has Ryan heard of a secret federalist group consisting of elite politicians and federal judges? Freemasons.
There's a bunch of groups like that.
Yeah.
They're not really secret, though. That's the thing. A lot of they're not secret. They openly do it. I mean, just the Council on Foreign Relations is not a secret. It's composed of a bunch of ex-spooks and stuff. They meet and make policies. Yep.
Right, we've got through all the questions, man.
World Economic Forum, full of fucking critters, but it's not a secret. That's the thing. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. They do it right in front of your face.
Thank you for answering all the questions. We've got through everything, and I know it's late there. So is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion to the viewers? All your links are in the description box.
I would say get a calendar, because this took a long time to get all the different days of like this day in history. And then I'm supporting higher birth rates. So there's some nice ladies in there too. Nothing nude or anything, but bikinis and whatever. But get one, or get your, almost said it, map of the guy. Yeah, that one. You can get a hoodie or a shirt or a map. Doesn't matter. The shirts and hoodies have the first page of the client list on the back. That's how we keep the lights on, is selling gear and stuff. I'm not allowed on anything proper. I'm not allowed on YouTube. I'm not allowed on PayPal, Patreon, Meta, Discord. Been banned on all these things. So we do appreciate it if you buy some stuff. And I'm proud of the calendars. That's a great one. But if you want something less, just get a hat or a beanie or whatever, anything. You just browse through the store. But I'll get some stickers or something. And then, or you can join Substack, $6 a month. I got some zingers in there, and it's a great guest interviews, podcasts, articles, every form of media there is. And I've made all but 2 of my films are free on the website because other people donate. Like the film I was mentioning on What Keeps Africa Poor, for example, you can watch that for free right now. You can watch Trump sign a ball and chain for free right now. Biden Crime Syndicate's free. A lot of these things are free on the site, but it's free only because other people are getting things in the store or joining Substack and so on. So there's that. And then, of course, follow me on X. But I am offensive, so have some thick skin.
Oh, really appreciate you spending time with us as usual. Have a great rest of your evening. Safe over there in Asia with your family. God bless you, and hope to see you
Come
soon,
see you next year, Sean. And in the words of Matt Gaetz, be offended.
Come and stay at the house and keep us up till 2 a.m. with your theories again. We would love that. Cheers.
Well, I was on a different time zone. See ya.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, man. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. What a phenomenal guest and great friend of the channel, folks. Thank you for supporting Ryan. You know, he does all this, and it helps out if you can get some stuff from his store. He's not asking for donations. I think he's too proud. He thinks if you can get something from his store, you're getting something in return, and you are getting something in return, and it's all badass stuff. So we've got another 2 hours of content coming this evening. We have got ex-Marine Captain Matthew Ho coming on at 8. It's a part 2 with him, talking about World War III, Russia, Ukraine. He's just come back from Gaza, so it's going to be phenomenal. And then after that, I'm going to put the link in the chat now. I went to an extremely moving event in London just over a week ago, and it was one of our podcast guests, Paul Stevens, hosted the event. He's got a book out. He's a survivor of this monster called Nigel Clayton, who got away with things for 40 years. Anyway, because of Paul's book, Nigel Clayton ended up getting sentenced to hundreds of years, which was a phenomenal victory. We filmed the event. Survivors came up on the stage and spoke for the first time. And one of them, God bless him, I was sat next to him. There was the trauma he was still so traumatized, he couldn't speak. But you know what? It made my day when we were walking down the stairs after the event, when he said to me, Sean, I feel like a weight has lifted off me just sitting there and being able to, you know, get up there and cathartically tell a little bit about his story. Yeah, really moving. So that one's coming on after Matthew Ho. That one's coming on at 9. So from 8 to 10, we've got approximately 2 hours of content. You may be wondering about Ron's show. I saw some questions in the chat. Ron is going to be back with a vengeance next week. The powers that be, all I'm just going to say is the powers that be intervened with his show, and his show had to be taken down. It was a serious threat to everything that we're doing, and they made some moves and succeeded against us, unfortunately. But we've had to regroup. Ron has spent the days since his show got taken down regrouping, coming up with a new strategy, and avoiding the dark forces from being able to target his future shows. Let's just leave it at that for now. But he has sent me a structure for all of his new shows. We've got lots of dynamite content coming with Ron in the coming week. If you're wondering what the hell happened, why his daily shows got completely nuked off the face of the earth, it was to do with the dark forces that come after us when we start talking about certain things. And I'm just going to leave it at that. We are being targeted, folks, you know, because of the nature of certain things. And we hope to navigate these treacherous waters unscathed. We've done it before. We've been through these treacherous waters before, and we will get through them unscathed. And a lot of it is thanks to your love and support. And the guests coming on and being mindful about what they say. Because if guests come on, you know, I don't like interrupting people and say, please say this instead of that. But if guests come on and they're not mindful about what they say, that gives the enemy cause to target everything we're doing. So that's why we have to be extra vigilant on this platform. But I will leave it at that. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances. We've got 2 hours coming tonight. I know Shane, the guest booker, he's moving house. He's had to take a week off lollygagging. No, he's not. He works very hard, and he's going to get back on track after this weekend, and we'll be going full force. So yeah, huge thank you to the entire team. Thank you for you, the viewers, all your love and support. And we will be back tonight at 8 with ex-Marine Captain Ho on